All right, we're working with absolute value and this understood imaginary negative 1. So the first thing we're going to jot down is a reminder of what absolute value is. And absolute value is the distance a number is from 0. All right, so these first two look pretty basic. There's nothing really weird going on with these. It's just a number inside our absolute value symbol. So the absolute value of 5 is 5 because 5 is 5 spaces away from 0 on a number line. The absolute value of negative 5 is 5 because negative 5 is 5 spaces away from 0 on a number line. But when we get to these next two examples, we have something a little different in our setup. We have our negative symbol on the outside, so there's actually a little something sneaky going on here. So we're actually going to expand what this problem means in this next little bit right here. This negative is actually representing an imaginary number 1. And we learned earlier in this year that a number next to parentheses is telling us to multiply. So since I have a negative, an imaginary negative 1 next to my absolute value symbol, that's also telling me to multiply. So what I really have going on here is negative 1 times the absolute value of 5. All right, so if we expand that just a little bit more, that is a negative 1 times, well, the absolute value of 5 is 5, and then we can solve it. So 1 times 5 is 5, and then a negative times a positive leaves us with a negative. All right, so we have to do a little something extra with that negative on the outside because, again, it's an imaginary negative 1. So let's expand this one down here as well. I have a negative absolute value of negative 5. So I've got negative 1 times the absolute value of negative 5. So if we just expand it, we've got negative 1 times the absolute value of negative 5. Negative 5 is 5 away from 0, and we end up with that same answer. All right, so we can think about it like this, of what is happening with our negative 1 on the outside. We can also think of it as we want the opposite of this, right? Because our negative is also a cue for the opposite. So I'm going to take the opposite of the absolute value of negative 5. Or I want the negative of the absolute value of 5. Same thing here. I want the opposite of the absolute value of negative 5. Or I want the negative of the answer to this problem. Now that's exactly what we've got. The answer to this problem is 5. And the opposite of that is negative 5. Or the answer, we want the negative of this answer. Well, the answer is 5. And if we want the negative of it, it's negative 5. All right? We can also see our imaginary 1 in our exponents, and we'll see that expanded down here. So we're going to get to this a little later once we start diving into this more so in like our algebra units. We're going to push pause on this for now and just play a little with our imaginary 1 for now, utilizing absolute value.